Support for Radio Friends comes from IT Como, offering computer and IT services for small businesses and residential clients. IT Como can set up remote work-at-home solutions and data security and backup systems and upgrade your company email to more modern platforms. IT Como can also help you get the most from your technology at home. Learn more at itcomo.com. Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends on Friday, February the 24th. You wake up, feel sleepy, drowsy, tired during the day. Well, you know what? It means that, you could just be tired during the day or you could have sleep apnea. We're going to talk about that. Dr. Jeremy Johnson is with us from Truman VA Hospital. Good to have you here, Jeremy. Now, those symptoms I gave, I said you wake up, you feel tired, or you're sleepy during the day, that does not necessarily mean that you have sleep apnea, correct?
That's correct. I mean, there are for sure symptoms of sleep apnea, and one of them that you touched on already is sleepiness during the day. We know there's lots of things that can cause sleepiness, just not sleeping well at night, but it could be a sign of obstructive sleep apnea. There's other things like waking up with morning headaches first thing in the morning, maybe a sign of sleep apnea. Of course, if somebody's heard or witnessed you snoring or stopping breathing. So there's all sorts of potentials.
We were talking before you went on, and you said snoring is a sign of sleep apnea. Now, I have known, growing up, my mother and father, they snored so loud. Mm-hmm. My grandmother and my grandfather, I remember when they would come over and spend the night in our house, I mean, the roof would rattle just about because we had 4 people in the house all snoring very loud. I remember that like as a kid. They all lived into their 80s. Yeah. Does that mean that they had sleep apnea?
Yeah, so we talked about it in the past, that snoring, loud snoring, the house shaking, can all be warning signs of obstructive sleep apnea. It doesn't mean you have sleep apnea.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. Just because you're snoring does not mean that you have it.
And so we have to have a polysomnogram or a sleep study to diagnose sleep apnea. And sleep apnea is, recognized, it's more recognized now than maybe it was 60 years ago, 80 years ago. And so I'd ask you then, was your family studied for sleep apnea?
No.
And so we don't know. They potentially had sleep apnea. They also maybe didn't have sleep apnea. Maybe some of them did. Maybe some of them didn't. But we know that it can affect our health, and we know it can affect long-term mortality. And so there are reasons to treat it. That your family lived into their 80s is wonderful. But maybe we should treat sleep apnea to prevent and to help people live longer.
Okay. Just because you have trouble sleeping at night, if you have a restless sleeper, is that a sign of sleep apnea?
It could be. I mean, it could be. There's other sleep disorders. Obstructive sleep apnea is probably the most common sleep disorder, but you can have insomnia. You can have restless leg syndrome. You can have periodic limb movement disorder.
Yeah, I have restless leg syndrome.
Yeah, so there's other sleep disorders. So restless sleep, again, could be a sign of obstructive sleep apnea, but doesn't mean it. And so we need to do a sleep study.
So how do you do the study? Do you have to go to a laboratory and sleep in the hospital at nighttime, or can you do it at home?
Yeah, that's a great question. 20 years ago, when I first started studying and learning about sleep apnea, we had to pretty much do everybody in a lab. You had to come to the hospital or come to an outpatient lab, wherever that was, and get hooked up and with wires and things that monitor your breathing.
Well, how could you sleep anyway with you're all wired up?
Yeah, so we try to make it as comfortable as we can, make it like a home environment in a sleep lab. But that was then. Now we can do sleep studies at home. They're called home sleep apnea tests. And so we can do some of this monitoring or sleep study at home. We may do a 2-night study or a 3-night study at home to try to get better data. Because then when you're in the lab, a technician is there working with you and watching you. If a lead or something goes wrong, then they can go troubleshoot it. If you're at home doing it yourself, we don't know. So we can do 2 or 3 night home sleep apnea tests, and we can diagnose sleep apnea in the home, in the comfort of your own bed, and you may not ever need to come to a sleep lab.
How are you doing that at home? Are you being wired up at home too?
So we don't monitor as many things in the house as we would if you came to the sleep lab, but there are some things that we have to monitor. So we have a little device that goes in the nose and mouth to monitor breathing, your airflow, how much comes in and how much comes out. We have one belt that goes across your chest and abdomen to sense, when we breathe, our chest and abdomen go up and down. We have to have a pulse oximeter to monitor your oxygen level. And so with those few simple channels or leads, we can do a sleep study at home. Now, if you come to the lab, we monitor for leg movements and restless legs.
Okay,
and
when you're
other things.
wired up to all of this, is it being fed into a computer? Is it being fed back to the doctor's office? Where's it going?
Yeah, great question. And historically, it used to have tracings that would go on a paper, and you'd have a big stack of paper that you had to look at the whole night study, 7 hours of sleep or 8 hours of sleep. Now in the era of computers, all the data flows into a computer, and then we can look at the study and review it the next day.
So is it going into the computer while you're sleeping?
Yeah, it's recording and going into the computer, and then we can review that data the next day.
It's being sent to the doctor's office at that point?
Well, if you're in lab study, you're in the lab, and
But if you're at home?
If you're at home, it's recording it on the device.
Okay.
And then when you return the device, again, we hook it into a computer and download all that data, and then we can convert it to what we can read.
Now, what happens
when
you get up, you got to go to the bathroom?
Yeah. So
are you carrying all this stuff around with you?
So the home sleep device is a simple device that may come in like a necklace or a lanyard around your neck and your chest. And so you just go to the bathroom. You just get out of bed and walk. You keep it on, and then you come back. And
this doesn't inhibit your sleeping, having all this stuff on you?
Some people, it could inhibit sleep, but we find...
It couldn't give a false reading then?
We can have false studies, and then maybe if you do a home test and it doesn't look like good data or it's false, then maybe we need to have you come to the lab. But most people, we can get good data and we can study you at home. Now in the lab, if you have to go to the bathroom, you have so many more wires like on your head so that we can look at brain waves and know whether you're truly asleep or awake. And so, but all those things come into one, what we call a head box. All those things are plugged in, and you just disconnect one outlet if you need to go to the bathroom, and you get up and you go to the bathroom and come back, and the technician will help you hook it back up. And so we make it as comfortable and as easy to do, and that people aren't confined to not going to the bathroom. You can get up and go to the bathroom. Yep.
If you want more, when you're my age, you got to go to the bathroom during the middle of the night.
And we know that. We understand that.
Yes.
So we
all right. If you want more information, how do they get this?
So if we want to talk about obstructive sleep apnea, our veterans can contact either the pulmonary or the sleep section at the VA hospital, and that's 814-6000 and extension 53363. If you're in the community and you're not a veteran and you go to Boone Hospital or University Hospital, you would want to start talking to your primary care physician, maybe get referral to a sleep physician, and so people can help you out. We can help treat sleep apnea.
Okay, thank you so much. And then we didn't get to really talk about it, but there's the other thing besides the machine. It's a dental thing you put in your mouth.
Right. There's lots of different therapies. One is an oral appliance.
Okay.
We can talk about alternative therapies.
All right. Jeremy, thank you so much for coming by. Pleasure visiting with you.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, we're out of time for today. If there's something you'd like to hear or see, drop me an email, pepperp@missouri.edu, and have yourself a nice day.